He ruled during the time of the golden age. Wars had ended and everything was what you might call hunky-dory, if they used those words back then. But King Solomon had three very big problems. The world, the flesh, and the devil. I want you to look at some scripture with me. You see, Solomon was in love with money. Look at 1 Kings chapter 10, 14 for me right quick. And we're going to look at 1 Kings a little bit before we get into Ecclesiastes. He loved the wealth of the world. Look what 1 Kings 10, 14 says. You ready to read?
Yeah.
Now the weight of gold that came to Solomon in 1 year was 666 talents of gold. Now, in 39 years of reign, that equates 25 tons of gold a year. 25 tons a year that was coming in to his vast treasure. Okay? He was equating all gold that he gathered from taxing his people. And you can read in the Bible how that's one thing that he did. He taxed the people unmercifully. Okay? 25 tons of gold a year, and according to people who know and is listed from the time of the beginning of the age of the night, he was listed as one of the 20th wealthiest people to ever live. Okay? So he had, and I don't know how they do the figure, but he had anywhere from $2 to $10 trillion in his vast treasury. Now, how many of you know what $1 trillion is? I don't know if this is so, but I've been told that you can equate the amount of $1 trillion that if you go back to the day that America became a nation, okay, 1776, up until the day, it has never spent $1 trillion. Never. Never. So that's how much $1 trillion is. More than a million, more than a billion, it's $1 trillion. So that's how rich he was. But you see, he had a problem. It wasn't enough. Now, you laugh, but let me tell you something. According to statistics, 70% fall into the same boat that Solomon does. What is that boat? They don't know how to manage money. Doesn't matter whether you got $1 or whether you got $1 million. 70% of the people in the world today cannot manage their own money. Now, when I do my premarital counseling, I always tell them 3 big hang-ups in life. It is lust, power, or lust, communication, and money. Okay, and I relate them to a book by a gentleman by the name of Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey, you ought to read it. It's a good book, How to Manage Your Money. He's been a guest on Fox News many, many times. But he can give you guidelines on how to manage your money. But I'm telling you, brothers and sisters, there's people that, just like Solomon today, doesn't matter how much they got, they can't manage it. And so he just couldn't manage his money. So the world and all that wealth that he had, he squandered in one way or another. He just couldn't manage it, okay? Now, the second problem that he had was the flesh. Look at 1 Kings 11, 1 through 3 right quick. But King Solomon loved many strange women, together with the daughter of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Sidonites, and Hittites, of the nations concerning which the Lord said unto the children of Israel, You shall not go into them, neither shall they come into you, for surely they will turn your heart away from their God, from your God after their gods. Solomon clave unto these in love, and he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. Now, so Solomon had another big problem, the flesh. You don't have to read between the lines. It's as plain as the nose on your face. Anybody that's got 300 concubines has got a problem with lust. Amen?
Amen.
I don't know how in the world you did that do? Well, that pretty much ruined his life. But he had a third problem. The third problem that he had was the devil. Now, I want to read you 1 Kings 3:14 through 15. This is a remarkable thing said about Solomon. There were 2 times in Solomon's life that God came to him and spoke to him and told him to live a righteous life. Okay? Chapter 3, 14 and 15. God is speaking to Solomon. He says, "If thou wilt walk in my way to keep my statutes and my commandments, as thy father David did walk in them, I will lengthen your days." And Solomon awoke, and behold, it was a dream. He came to Jerusalem, he stood before the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and offered up burnt offerings and offered peace offerings, and made a feast of all of his servants. So what did he do? Well, on 2 occasions, Solomon gave the most spectacular sacrificial offering that has ever been given by anybody. It's recorded in the book of Kings, where he sacrificed thousands upon thousands of animals. He called all the people from all the areas of Israel to come and watch. And for days upon days, he worshiped God and sacrificed unto his God. At that particular time, him and God was on speaking terms. God blessed him, gave him wisdom, gave him everything that he could possibly have, a kingdom. Well, he just had it all, and he was in touch with God. But something happened. Look at 1 Kings 11:6 through 11. Wait a minute. 6 through 11, and it tells you what happened. "And Solomon did evil in the sight of the Lord, and went not fully after the Lord, as did David his father. Then Solomon built a high place for Chemosh, the abomination of the Moabite." Now Chemosh was involved in human sacrifice. "In the hill that is before Jerusalem, and for Moloch," that's another human sacrifice statue, "the abomination of the children of Ammon, and likewise did he for all of his strange wives." Now you do the math. If he had 700 wives, and they were all different countries, he had 700 different idols which burned incense and sacrificed unto their gods. Their gods. "And the Lord was angry with Solomon, because his heart was turned from the Lord God of Israel, which had appeared unto him twice," as I told you a moment ago, and we just read about one of them, "and had commanded him concerning this thing, that he should not go after other gods, but he kept not that which the Lord commanded. Wherefore the Lord said unto Solomon, For as much as this is done of thee, and thou hast not kept my covenant and my statutes which I have commanded thee, I will surely rend the kingdom of thee, and will give it unto thy servant." So, the world, all of that wealth, the flesh, all of that lust, and worshiping the devil destroyed the life of Solomon. Okay? It is in that backdrop, okay, that we find the book by the preacher, Ecclesiastes. Now, I have looked earnestly. I don't know why Solomon was called a preacher. Does anybody know? Because it's called Message of the Preacher. Does anybody know? It may be because it is listed like a sermon. And I'll tell you about that in just a minute. But I don't really know why it's called the sermon or the Message of the Preacher. I don't know why Solomon was called a preacher. If you can help me find that answer, do it. Google it or study it or whatever you want to do, okay? But anyway, the book of Ecclesiastes, which we're going to look at tonight. So I want you to turn with me, if you would, please, and that's what we're going to talk about. It is in the backdrop of Solomon's heart being turned away from God that he started to sum up the situation that he found himself in. If time permits, we will get through chapters 1 and chapter 2 tonight. Now, the whole book is a book of pessimism, except for the last 2 chapters. Chapters 11 and 12 is the summary of the message that he is preaching, okay? The difference between a pessimist and an optimist is the pessimist always sees the glass as half empty rather than half full, okay? Now, are you a pessimist or optimist? Most of you are pessimists. I can tell you why. You always call them red lights. They're green just as much as they're red, but you never acknowledge a green light. You said, oh, there's a red light there. That means you're pessimist in your mind, okay? Think about that for a minute. Chew that when you get home. But anyway, the glass is half empty rather than half full. So the whole book is the book of pessimism, okay, until you get to the last chapter. Is it inspired? Absolutely. It is inspired to give us a view of how vain and empty the world is. He portrays a philosophical viewpoint of every human being who is trying to decide what to do with their lives. Now, if you have never been there, you're lying. You somewhere in your life, you sit back in the rocking chair. Maybe you was 5, and you couldn't have been 5. Maybe you was 15. Maybe you was 25. What am I going to do with my life? Well, here's where most people fit today. Okay? What are you going to do with your life? Well, I'm going to find me a job and work. Well, why do you want to work? Well, I want to make money. Why do you want to make money? Well, I want to buy things. Why do you want to buy things? So I can live. Well, why do you want to live? So I can work. Why do you want to work? So I can make money. Why do you want to make money? So I can buy things. Why do you want to make money? Buy things so you can live. Why do you want to live? So I can go back to work. Over and over again. And if that is your cycle, you have missed the boat in life. You have really, really missed the boat. Okay? Now, why I believe it might be called the message of the preacher is because it's broken up in a sermon. As a matter of fact, you could say that every sermon I preach, it has Solomon overtures. Okay? He has a subject or a title. That's chapter 1, verses 1 through 11. He has a text, which is chapter 1 through 2. He has 2 main points. Okay? There is no purpose in anything. That's chapters 3 through 8. And then there's no point to anything. That is chapter 9 through 11. Then he has a conclusion, which he calls a summary. He summarizes things, but it is really a conclusion, which we need to fear God with our lives. Okay? But anyway, that is the book of Ecclesiastes, and that's the message of the preacher. Okay? I told you lies. It's got 2 things, but he has 3 points under the sermon. Okay? What was taught by Solomon, what is seen by Solomon, and what is studied by Solomon. Okay? And then the summary. So anyway, you could say, if you've heard me preach, 90% of my sermons has 3 points. You'll have a text, you'll have a title, you'll have 3 points and a conclusion. If you heard me preach, you've heard me. That's all that I have to do. And apparently that's all Solomon did in his book called Ecclesiastes. Okay? So let's look at this for just a minute. Okay? We'll begin in chapter 1, and we're going to look at chapter 1 and chapter 2 if we can get that far. Okay? Now, the most important verse in chapter 1 is verse 15. Somebody read that.
What is twisted cannot be straightened, what is flattened cannot be found.
What translation are you reading from?
Cannot be.
Yeah. Get out of here with that. Here's what King James says. That which is crooked cannot be made straight, and that which is wanting cannot be numbered. Okay? Now, that'll give you something to think about. If it's crooked, it can't be made straight. In other words, you can't fix stupid. I think that's kind of what he's saying. I believe that's what he's saying there. Now, so that's the most important verse in chapter 1. Okay? All right, now, he talks, and as we said, let's read the title. Let's read verses 1 through 11, and we'll see his title and his subject. The title of the message is in verses 1 and 2. The words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. So we know what his subject is, right? Everything is vanity. Everything in life, your purpose and your goal is all vanity. Then he gives the subject. Okay? That's verses 3 through 11. What profit has a man of all his labor which he takes under the sun? One generation passes away, another generation comes, but the earth abides forever. The sun rises, the sun goes down, and hastens to his place where he arose. The wind goes toward the south and turns about into the north. It whirleth about continually, and the wind returns again according to its circuits. All the rivers run to the sea is not full. Unto the place from whence the rivers come, there they return again. All things are full of labor. Men cannot utter it, the eye is not satisfied with seeing it, nor the ear filled with hearing. The thing which has been, it is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun. Is there anything whereof it may be said, see, this is new? He has been already of old time, which before us. All right, you tell me what the subject is. Huh? Everything's everything's the vanity, but nothing ever changes. The sun continues to rotate. You grow and you get old. It's just continuous over and over. And he says there's nothing new under the sun. People today actually brag on new ways to commit crime. You know, you have high-tech crime, but it's still crime. You know, it all goes back to the basis of the Ten Commandments. You know, cheating has always been wrong, stealing has always been wrong, lying has always been wrong. They just devise new ways to do it. But somebody said, you know, if it was a sin today, or sin 100 years ago, it's a sin today. Now, I do know there's a lot of things that has changed in life. My mama, she thought it was a sin to wash clothes on Sunday. Well, was it? Huh? My mama, listen, my mama would never wear a pair of shorts out of the house because she thought it was a sin for her children to see her in a pair of shorts. Now, was it wrong or not? Wrong. There was a time in America when I grew up that the businesses closed down on Wednesdays so everybody go to church. But now it just seems. But you see, all of those things that are old just seems to be coming. Now we just make excuses for all the old ladies. Well, they were just narrow-minded. They were set in a way. It really don't matter about those things. Will you tell me today what matters and what don't? You tell me. I'll sit and listen to you. Tell me what matters and what don't. I'm listening.
What matters is what the Lord directs you to do.
Okay, how does he direct you?
By His commandments.
Commands, verbal, audible. How does he tell you what to do?
His Holy Spirit. Conviction about.
So he gives you direction through who? Through his word? However, what else? How does God direct your life?
The Holy Spirit can direct you too, because He will let you know if you know something. If you start to do something that's wrong, that Spirit's going to let you know. Wait a minute, you know better than that. You're going to feel that Spirit working in your life.
All right, but y'all still ain't answering my question. Why was it so wrong 100 years ago and it's not wrong today? Explain that to me. Does anybody have an answer?
Society
Can you go home and go to sleep with it?
As society's changed, they don't believe in the old ruling. And they just keep on, they want to believe in man's law, they don't want to believe in the law of the God, law of our God. They just change, they believe in what they think that they need to do.
I think it's because people are not being taught as they grow up.
Okay.
Like,
Yes, sir.
We've got away from God.
Okay.
I mean, back when you're talking about, it was a matter of modesty. That's why your mother.
Well, yeah, that's true. Modesty seems to be out the window today.
And
You know,
humility.
listen,
Manners, all that
it's a
stuff.
shame. It's a shame when the preacher has to come to church and put blinders on the preach. Listen, anything goes today. And you might throw rocks at me when I say this. I know we have an explosion today of sexual harassment. But if a woman wears stuff that is suggestive to you touching or lusting after her body, don't she claim some of
She
the
has
blame?
part of it.
Do you believe it, huh? Or is that, that's just me being bad?
No, she has her own in it.
So I think you hit on the key. Modesty is important in this modern generation just as important as the last generation. Now how you address that modesty, matters too. We don't go back to the same rules, but we still must be modest in the way we live, right? Okay. Yes, sir.
I mean, the women today were dressed as women dressed in earlier years in less weight and less
Well, they're not going back. And it's basically because of what Betty said, you know, we've accepted the norm, okay? You probably don't, but I do. When people get up and sing or preach, I look at the way they're dressed. And sometimes some of these contemporary singers do not dress what I consider appropriate. Now, maybe I'm old-fashioned and old school, and maybe I'm being narrow-minded. But I think they ought to dress a little more modest when they're up there singing for the Lord. What do you think?
Amen.
You agree with that or not?
Yes.
It's okay for them to get up there in tight knit pants
No.
to sing for God?
No.
Well, there you go.
But I think all goes back to, if you are a Christian, when you leave these doors, the world is looking at you.
Absolutely.
And if you don't act like a Christian, then you're not being the witness God expects you to be.
Amen.
I agree with that. I agree with that. Okay. All right.
One observation, we had this lesson several months ago, and we were studying about all the vanity that he was talking about, but if you pay attention to it, it's mostly the natural things of the world, because man, especially mankind that serve God, is not vanity. You know, we have a job to do, and whenever you do that job, you actually accomplishing stuff. You're contributing. But he's looking at the cycles of nature and those type things, which is repetitious. And thank the Lord that they still are. Because if the sun don't come up, then, you know, we're in trouble.
Okay.
But that's basically what he's really focusing on. He's not focusing on the activities of mankind that much.
So he's not focusing on sin, he's just focusing on things of the world, not vanity.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, he gets into a little bit of other stuff, but it's mostly the repetition of the way the world is set up and that type of thing.
All right, let's go to chapter 2. Actually pick up in verse 12. And these are the things that he sought after. Okay? You listen to the things he sought, the things he seen. He says, life is barren, life is bitter, and life is boring. Okay? And the most important verse in chapter 2 is verse 24. There is nothing better for a man than that he should eat and drink, and that he should make his soul enjoy good in his labor. This also I saw that it was from the hand of God. Okay? That's a pretty powerful statement. And I think it sums up the philosophy of life. It means that life is more than just the labor of our hands, it's what he accomplishes with his life. And his soul is satisfied with what he's doing with his life. You know, I think that's what it boils down to. All right, first of all, let's talk about, okay, life being barren. I was the preacher over a king. the preacher, was king over Israel. I gave my heart to seek and search out wisdom concerning all things that are under the heaven. This travail has God given to the sons of man to be exercised therewith. I have seen all the works that are done under the sun. Behold, all is vanity and vexation of spirit. That which is crooked cannot be made straight. That which is wanting cannot be numbered. I commune with my own heart. I am come to great estate and got more wisdom than all that have been before me. In Jerusalem, yea, my heart has great experience of wisdom and knowledge. I gave my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. I perceive that that is also vexation of spirit, for in much wisdom is much grief, and he that increases knowledge increases sorrow. Now, what I see from that is basically saying that life is barren, okay? If you had a choice today of living anywhere that you could live in the world, would you choose a different place? Raise your hand if you would. Anybody? One, that's all? You don't know? Two? You don't know? Okay. All right, let me put it another way. Huh?
Move or Earth would be hard to find me if I had that.
I can move you to someplace in West Virginia, they won't be able to find you.
I'm all over with.
Okay. Let me put this another way. All right. You do know why cities came into existence, right? It was to be for protection. People moved into cities because they knew when they had neighbors that the thieves and the Indians or barbarians wouldn't vandalize them easy. And so basically they built around where the kings lived, and the king offered them protection. Then the king got in his mind and said, well, if I'm going to give them protection, they ought to pay for it. And that's where taxing came in. They started taxing. So anyway, city life became purpose, or security became the purpose of city life. Now, all of y'all live in the country. If you had your druthers, would you rather live in the city or live in the country? Now, you say you stay in country, but living in the country brings its own terrors, doesn't it? You know, you don't know when you leave the house whether somebody's going to break in because you don't have any neighbors watching your house, okay? But it seems like things have flipped. In the cities now, people who live, there's more vanity and vain stuff that goes on in the city than there is in the country because you have shootings, even in good old Burg, you know, shootings and killings and all kinds of stuff. You just read the papers, it's there. So, would you rather have city life or would you rather have country life? Now, if you say you'd rather live in the country, you give me one reason why. All three people give me one reason why you like the country. I know you're going to raise your hand. Give me a reason.
I protect my house from anything I need, and I can store what I want inside my house to protect myself.
Can't do that in the city.
I don't think you can.
Okay. Somebody else.
I like quiet for the country.
Right.
I'm happy.
You like the quiet? Jack?
I like being away from the city traffic.
Hey,
From who?
City traffic.
Okay, the city traffic. Jack?
Privacy.
Privacy, okay.
Wildlife, trees.
All right, now, you say that, but now, all right, yes, Miss.
I feel closer to God in the country because I get out and see everything He created.
Everything you feel, all right, you feel up to the Lord, okay? That's a good point. All right? Now, there are some places in the country that I wouldn't want to live, okay? Now, I'm going to be honest with you. Georgiana, you tell me if I'm true. When I come to this church, I'm the only preacher who won't know how far it was from Walmart. Right, okay? I like the country, but I like to be able to get in my car and go to Walmart, okay?
You wouldn't talk closer to you said if there was a Walmart.
Yeah, it had to be a Walmart in there, I wasn't coming. Okay, so you probably like me. I mean, I like the fact you say we love country life, but I'm going to be close to the interstate, I'm going to be close to the city, because I want to be able to jump in the car and go to a restaurant. There are places in South Carolina, even over there around Springfield, where you can't jump in the car and drive to get to an interstate, or jump in the car and go get a hamburger. So, you know, I don't like that kind of country living. I'm not going to move to Isabel, where it takes the law 4 hours to get there. I'm not going to do that, okay? So, there's a catch to what you say as far as country living.
So you're not planning on getting a mule and doing your own garden?
No, sir. No, sir. I am not going to do that. Now, if World War III breaks out, you know, I might get a dog and hook a plow to it. Don ain't going to like this, but see, if the grocery stores go broke, I can have 20 meals. I got $20. But you see, what I'm saying is there's an extent to what you're willing to live with, okay? Okay, there's an extent of what you're willing to put up with. And some of you are like me, okay? Let's put that in the culture of the church, you know. We're a country church, okay? But we have access to everything that you want. The hospitals and the sheriffs are 30 minutes away, right? Give or take. So we like the close-knit of security where we are, okay? So anyway, let's look at chapter 2. The barrenness is important, okay? And then we'll talk about the bitterness, okay? Let's go a little further, okay? Talk about the bitterness. I said in my heart, go to now, I will prove thee with mirth. Therefore enjoy pleasure, and behold, this also is vanity. He's talking about the mirth. Now, mirth means bitterness. I said of laughter, it is mad, and of mirth, what doeth it? I sought in my heart to give myself wine, yet acquainting my heart with wisdom, and to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was that good for the sons of men, which they sought to do under the heaven all the days of their life. I made great works, I built my houses, I planted my vineyards, I made gardens, orchards, trees, all kinds. I made pools of water. The wood that gathers, I got my servants, my maidens, my servants born in the house, great possessions. I gathered silver and good, peculiar treasures. And he goes on, I was great and increased more than all in Jerusalem. Also my wisdom remained, and whatever my eyes desired, I kept not from them. I withheld my heart from joy, my heart rejoiced in all my labor, and this was my portion of labor. And then I looked on all the works that my hands, now everything that he had said, verses 1 through 10, it was all vanity and vexation. Now what he's saying is this: everything that he had in his life boiled down to one thing: bitterness, mirth, suffering. Now, your philosophy in life, okay? And unfortunately, there are some people who suffer more than others. But he's talking about everything in life eventually brings bitterness, okay? It's great to have a pet, but we know that a pet will not live as long as you. You know that within 10 to 12 years, that pet is going to die. So for that little bit of pleasure, you suffer the last years of their lives. And you have them and you cry and you bury them. There are people who say, and I've heard this, that I don't want a pet because I don't want to have to bury one. So that robs them of the pleasure. There are people who refuse to have children today for the same reason. I don't want the sorrow that they bring later in life. Now you think about that statement. Some of them actually say, well, I don't want children because I don't want to bring them into such a terrible world. I've heard that from people before. Have you? So anyway, so what Solomon is saying is the bitterness that suffering brings is not worth all the things that you do, all the pleasures that you enjoy in your life. Now, what is your philosophy for life? Knowing that you will have all kinds of suffering, you will have all kinds of bitterness, you'll have all kinds of pain, you'll have all kinds of heartache. How do you sum up your life? Anybody, any great philosophers in here can give me a good quote?
Well, I'm not a great philosopher, but I look at it just the opposite the way he does.
You do?
Yeah, I mean, you use the pet as an example. If you get 10 years of pleasure out of that pet,
Yeah.
or he dies, you got a couple months of grieving maybe, or if you move on to another pet, you got another 10 years of, I mean, the trade-off is obvious to me.
Okay. Very good. Very good. That's a good point. That's good. But that wasn't Solomon's point.
I know, I don't say he's negative on everything.
Well, remember now, he done failed in 3 big tests. He's worshiping devils. He's got all them wives to please, and he done broke now. He's lost all of his wealth. Yes,
Well,
ma'am.
I've always felt like my blessings have outnumbered all the problems I've ever had.
Amen.
Okay, so you're willing to cry the tears.
Yeah.
You're willing to do the
You
suffering.
know that's a big part of life.
All right, what about those people who come to the end of life and the pain is so great that they say, I want some pills that will end it? Y'all got real quiet.
I don't think they really know the Christ.
Sure enough.
They have to. If they are at the situation,
I've heard many a Christian, one that I married last week, that said they were ready to go. They were tired of the pain and suffering. Okay. They're ready to pray for me to go. I'm tired of suffering now. So would it be all right to take the pill and go ahead and end it?
no.
Why?
Because God's got the right to say when you die and when you don't die.
Ma'am?
I deal mostly with senior adults, and I hear that quite often.
Often, yes.
And I remind them that God put them here for a purpose, and that God's going to leave them here until their purpose is fulfilled, no matter what. And they just have to trust in Him to get through the problems.
So is that a sin?
I don't think it's a sin to long for heaven. I said, I don't think it's a sin to long for heaven.
No.
No, I don't either. But would you in your life?
I don't think I would.
If the pain was so horrible, would you take the pills in your life?
No, but there are people that mentally, I can understand and think that.
Okay.
I think a lot of times they look at their age and their bodies are deteriorated and all, and they think, like the lower back and the bottom of it, why is God leaving me here? Because I can't do what I used to do, and I can't work for God like I used to work for God. They give me these type of things, but God still has a purpose. I remind him, you can still send a card, you can still make a call.
All right, I agree with Bruce, but I agree with him in a at this particular time. And so everything he looked on as far as the goodness in his life didn't amount to anything. All he focused in on was the sorrow. The point is having a right relationship with God when it comes down to the end of your life. Now, we talk about having a right relationship with God when people start their lives. But Chuck Swindoll wrote a book, a good book, entitled Finishing Strong. You know, and most of you fit in that category today. It's very important that we don't lose sight of who we are, and it's very important that we don't lose sight of our witness when we get to the end of our lives, because our end is coming sooner than later anyway, and so we have to finish strong. We have to. And so we have to keep a perspective of, doesn't matter about the sufferings. I've got to keep my faith in God. Okay? All right, I'm going to try to get finished. I don't know if I'm going to or not. Okay? Last few verses. Where did I read to? 12? Then I saw that wisdom excels folly, as far as light excels darkness. The wise man's eyes are the head, but the fool walks in darkness. I myself perceived also that one event happened to them all. This said I in my heart, as it happened to the fool, so it happened to me. That's true. It did. There's no difference. A sinner is a sinner, whether he's smart or foolish. Then I said in my heart, this is vanity. There is no remembrance of the wise more than of the fool forever, seeing that which is in the days to come shall be forgotten. How dieth the wise man as a fool? Therefore I hated life, because the work that is wrought under the sun is grievous unto me. All is vain and vexation of spirit. I hated all my labor, which I had taken under the sun, because I shall leave it unto another man. He who knoweth whether he shall be a wise man or a fool, yet shall have he rule over my labor. I've labored, and wherein I have showed myself wise under the sun, that's just vain too. Therefore I went about to cause my heart to despair of all the labor which I took. And there is a man whose labor is in wisdom and in knowledge and equity, yet to a man that has labored therein shall he leave it for his portion. This is vanity and a great evil. What hath man of all his labor and the vexation of his heart, wherewith he has labored under the sun? For all his days are sorrow, his travail, grief, yea, his heart takes not rest in the night. This is vanity. There is nothing better for man than he should eat, drink, and that he should make his soul enjoy good and labor. This also I saw that it was from the hand of God. For who can eat, or who else can hasten there more than I? For God gives to a man what is good, and in his sight wisdom and knowledge and joy. But to the sinner he gives travail, to gather and to heap up, that he may give to him that is good before God. This is vanity, and this is vexation of spirit. Okay? Now, what does he say? Basically, he's summing up that life is boring. Regardless of what you do in your life, whether you're wise, or whether you achieve great heights, or whether you're a fool and you can't write your name plainly. Life is basically boring. Now, let's think about that. Let's break our life down into stages, okay? You don't have to answer, but what kind of childhood did you have, okay? What kind of teenage life did you have? What kind of life did you have when you was married and raising children? And would there be a way that you could go back and do those things? And how much of that was tremendous and how much it was boring to you? And he's basically saying, listen, life in its whole is just a boring existence. And without the Lord, that's true. Just like a man, you know, while I work to make money. The reason I make money is so I can work. That's basically the summation of a person's life who doesn't have a relationship with the Lord. His life is basically boring. Okay?
Really sounds like he's truly lost.
Well, that's the perplexing thing about it. Here's a man who had great accomplishments. He wrote books of the Bible. He built the temple of God. But yet he turned his heart so far away from God that he can't see the light of day today. That's a warning to every human being.
Somebody's constantly complaining. You ask somebody, how are you doing? And it's just, oh, this and that, this and that. That's almost a sin right there, because you're ruining that person you're talking to. You're ruining their walk with God. I mean, if somebody asks you how you doing, I mean, myself, I'm fantastic. I'm breathing. It's just
Well, let me tell you something. I don't know about his generation, but if he was looking out on the young people of his generation, and I could do this, look out on the young people of our generation, they live boring lives. It's not boring what they do, but they've made their lives boring. They just inside a bubble. Let me explain that. I'm going to try, and I'm going to close, okay? When you're raising children, okay, you have to train those children to be what they are. That's what the Bible says. You see children today who get so caught up on being inside, okay? It's all about video games. Now, I'm proud of my son. He said, oh, we're not going to do that. We're going to find stuff to do outside. So he takes his son outside, ride a bicycle, play basketball, do something outside. Because that's what's important. And because when you get people narrow-minded and focused in on just small things, then they end up bored with life. And they end up bored as child, they end up bored as adults. And nothing fixes that. They go through 2 or 3 marriages because they're just bored on the inside. They have no purpose, no goal. They're just zombies. Who made them into zombies? Well, probably the sinful life they were living. And that's what they become. They become zombies and then life just begins. I promise you, there's a lot of people that fit that bill today. And I'm probably not talking to any of them tonight. Y'all just full of joy and happiness every day. You got spring in your step, you're ready to just jump up. But there's a danger. If you decide ever to leave God out of your life, you will find yourself become so bored with life and so bored with existence, and one day you might want to just take your own life. So I just don't want to live anymore. So I think that's where he was. That's what he's writing about. I think he's writing about the reflections on the young generation. Okay? Because when he gets to chapter 12, he basically sums that up. Remember the Lord in the days of your youth. Okay? I think he sums that up. Any questions or comments? Yes, sir.
I think part of the last part you just read is that there he was at the get to the end of his life and he was seeing that all he had accomplished was going to be left in somebody else's hands.
Right, correct.
And it's like, you know, it gives you the idea of a lot of stuff. People hold on to a lot of stuff and they can't use just like a lot of money. You can't take it with you. And,
Absolutely.
And you lay there worried about who's going to do what with it when you come.
Now, I asked you a question, and I wanted 2 or 3 share. You get your time, don't worry. What would you do if you won the lottery? Does anybody want to share with me what you do? Yes, sir.
First of all, give God to us or more.
I won't know more than that. You're not looking for pats on the back. I just know what you want to hear.
That's the first part order.
Okay, what else?
I'll give you my house.
You do redo your house, okay? Anything else? All right, that's good. Anybody else? Yes, Doc.
Like him, I would give a percentage to God, but that's what I did, pay off bills. But,
Well, you have plenty of money to pay off debts, I think.
yeah, but so many people waste them. I'm satisfied like I am, so I would do more, like, to help others along the way and put some up to take care of my kids and grandkids, but I'm not gonna just go out and blow it like a lot of them do.
Jack?
God bless me beyond measure. I don't need any money. My kids don't need any money. I would put it all in charity, very charities that I like and respect, and that's where it would all go.
Okay, very good, very good. All right, here's what I do, and I've already said this before. I might have said it in the sermon, I don't remember. But I would, if I had $1 million, I would start 3 churches somewhere in the world, and I'd pay these pastors salary to be on the field for 5 years, and then I'd reevaluate. I'd start the most elaborate no-kill shelter that you've ever seen in your life all over the world, okay? And it'd be the talk of everybody. It'd just be a no-kill shelter. And I'd spend all that money on those churches and on that no-kill shelter. But here's the point. This is going to astound you, okay? What you are doing with your life right now is usually what you would do if you won the lottery. Jack made my point right there. It wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter. I'm already working with no-kill shelter. I'm already giving money and supporting churches all the way around the world through the cooperative program, Lottie Moon and Annie Armstrong. So nothing would change. Now, if you have your head screwed on right, it wouldn't matter if you won, $1 million playing bingo tomorrow or something. Your life, if you got your head screwed on straight, it wouldn't change you. But we do know it changes people. But when you got your head screwed on straight, you won't end up like Solomon.
Well, I built a great big old room on my house, $30,000 grand here, and I went,
end up losing all of that.
Well, some of them do, some of them do, some of them end up on, they end up just like Solomon, you know, he's a case in point.
It's been all in the bank, they've already.
Not have no money.
I couldn't do that.